Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And this is James.
That's right. He's back. Nye the Baseball Guy, James Nahikian, is our guest for today's show. He's going to be joining us for the whole thing. So it is going to be just a sports show today. We're going to get into it's October, guys. It's October. Thank God it's October. And it's the greatest sports month. We're going to get into MLB postseason talk. And before I go any further, one of the games is going on right now. I don't know about you guys, but I have like a screen on it. We got the Texas Rangers and the Tampa Bay Rays going in the wild card right now. And it's fun because this time of year, like, you do get this kind of crossover to where you have games going on in the afternoon. It's just like endless baseball. I mean, I love that the wild card is this way now. But before we do that, we are going to get into some NFL stuff, but just kind of wanted to give the rounds to listeners. James, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, doing great. I'm a veteran on this show. I feel like multiple appearances, big time fan, and I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back, man. Casen, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, it's a busy week, with work and stuff as usual, and lots of stuff going on, but happy to be here. Chop it up was about some baseball and football, and we're going to talk about how Nostradamus baseball Jim over there is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's time for us and listeners to get completely schooled by how much we don't know as much about baseball as James does. But before we do that, we are going to go like our normal lineup. We're going to talk about a little, probably more brief this week, talking about the NFL and college, and of course we're going to do of the weeks, which, James, I'm sure you know what that is, but it's like essentially our of the week segment before we get into just baseball to close out things. So on that note, I want to give James Nahikian the platform to talk about the game that happened a week ago, his Detroit Lions. He's rocking. Rocking a Lions hoodie right now? There it is. James, I've known you a long time, and Casen also has. I've known you a long time, and I've never really had a context. You probably have the most optimism right now you've ever had about the Detroit Lions. So get into it, man.
Yeah, I mean, Kellan, as you know, I predicted the Lions to win the NFC North, which is the first time in my life I've ever done that. So yeah, there's definitely just within the entire fan base, I would say, like, it's very easy to just, the general vibe of the fan base is always like, okay, like, we're horrible and nothing good is going to happen. And for the last like half of last year, and then there was actually like legitimate hype around the team, I thought, for once, and it was somewhat justified, and then I thought the team would be good. But yeah, they have at least gotten off to a good start, and I thought the Green Bay game, looking at the schedule and that it was the fourth game of the season, I thought that was a huge game in the season. And, there's games in the past where you lose an early division game and you feel like it sets the tone for the season. So hopefully this is the opposite for once.
It was a statement win if I've ever seen one from the Lions. As I told you, I remember saying, I looked at the box score afterwards because I was occupied last Thursday, but I mean, obviously the Lions pretty much dominated the Packers and said, okay, it's our turn now, And it really they kind of cemented themselves as the NFC North in a lot of ways, has kind of flipped, minus the Chicago Bears. So yeah, I'm over the moon for the Lions right now. Hopefully you can keep it going. Who do the Lions have this upcoming week?
Yeah, they play the Panthers at home, which are one of the two remaining 0-4 teams. So they really need to, it's the NFL though. There's so many, each week you could literally go down and pick 1 to 2 kind of stunning results. But yeah, they need to just take care of business. They're a better team than them, and get the 4-1, and that gives you some, you can lose like a game or two, which is bound to happen, and you have a little bit of leeway. So hopefully, yeah, that's one that I like. The Packers game, I had circled that Panthers game as, okay, you're playing a rookie quarterback. I don't expect them to have like a great record. So hopefully that's a game that they can just move to 4-1 and continue the start to the season.
Any thoughts, Casen, on the Lions in general?
Casen, you picked the Lions to win the NFC North, didn't you?
Yeah, I think you did. You did,
Yeah,
didn't you?
I've just always I can't even explain it. I just always been a fan of Jared. He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
I loved him at the Rams. And then he seems to be very he seems to have really adopted the city of Detroit, being such a California kid. It's cool to see him sort of, go into Michigan and really just, make it his new home, and happy to see him doing very well for the first time in a while. Happy for you, James, and all the other Lions fans. And I don't know if we mentioned it the last time you were on, but I lived below you for the 2019 season in Bowling Green. And so anytime there would be those terrible penalties called
I remember
against the
that.
Lions,
Right.
I think that was the season when they had back-to-back games of just terrible endings with phantom flags and stuff. And so I can vividly remember, just hearing you go nuts upstairs.
I totally forgot about
great.
that. You did. That's right. You guys lived.
Yeah.
That's right. When we still worked.
I was probably honestly sending a Snapchat to Kellan as reacting to a play as you heard. That's probably what it was, honestly.
Yeah.
Dodgers again? No. Come on.
And of course, for the listeners, we explained it before, but I lived with James through most of college at BG, another fellow BGSU alumnus. So I was there for many. What's funny is I lived with you through probably the last time the Lions were actually this good.
That
one season when they went to the playoffs against the Cowboys.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's great to see that again. And honestly, it's just I wanted to kind of give you the floor to start things here. Casen, what other games do you want to get into? I don't want to get into as many as we normally do, like the 5 or 6, but I figure we can talk about a solid 3.
Yeah. I don't think we really need to address the Browns game. That game didn't happen. That game doesn't count. So we can go ahead.
Neither did the Steelers game.
The London game. Do you guys watch the Toy Story stream on Disney Plus?
Dude, amazingly, that was the only feed I could get. I have Disney Plus, so I couldn't get the actual game. From what I kind of I joined it kind of in the middle. From what I hear, I don't know about you guys, but from what I hear, the beginning of the game was a little bit rough. Like the AI was kind of having trouble.
Yeah, it was real glitchy and stuff. Yeah,
but when they figured it out, it actually was really cool. And I will say I thought the theming of Toy Story was an interesting choice, given that I feel like Toy Story is really a bigger deal to people our age. I mean, I know it's a timeless classic, but I was thinking to myself, I'm like, do current kids care about Toy Story?
Yeah,
to the extent 90s kids. I don't know. I mean,
that's a really good question. I mean, they came out with Toy Story 3 and 4 within the last 10 years. So, I mean, you could just maybe that kind of brought them in, but you would think maybe it would have been, maybe Cars or maybe that's even too.
No, I think
ago. I don't know.
I mean, Toy Story is the biggest property of Pixar. So it makes sense. I'm just kind of, and really they're thinking in terms of we need to start promoting Toy Story 5. Yeah. That's really what they're thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. Encanto themed. I don't know. I have no idea what they do.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was cool. I thought it was really cool, honestly.
It was very funny watching Slinky back it up when he has the chain gang.
The claw was the ball placer. That was pretty great. Also interesting.
The clips I've seen on social media of the actual play and then the what they came up with the Toy Story play, and it's wow, that was every time I've seen it, it's okay, that's basically what happened.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. Funny Toy Story animated version of it.
What I do find interesting about that game also is kind of post game. The Jags obviously won it. They've played overseas more than any other team recent years. They're still there because they're playing Buffalo this week over there. So that's fascinating. So I'm sure they've had an interesting week.
Is a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously.
That's probably true.
Their owner I was it was Fulham versus Chelsea, I think I was watching, and their owner was he's I think he owns Fulham or whatever.
Shad Khan,
yeah, hit that guy. I know he wants to move him over there at least, and then they're playing back-to-back weeks there. That's how I interpreted it.
I think for him, it would ideally make sense.
Yeah.
If they don't move, he'll definitely raise his hand in the owners meeting and being like, "Can I get the expansion team and just give the Jags to someone else?" Because like all of his business being in one place, I totally understand his mindset. Not having to
Yeah,
go spot.
he's definitely like the Jags moving to London's been a joke for like it's been a meme for like a decade.
Yeah,
Like and I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It's definitely wild. I mean, that would be ridiculous for teams to have to go out there and then have to come back to the US for away games.
I am on record saying that I think within the next 10 years, we are going to have potentially 4 teams in Europe. Because I think if it was up to them, if it's up to them, I think they'll put 2 in Germany and 2 in Great Britain, would be my guess. And with what I've seen, I think it will work out because it's clear that they do have a lot of fans in those 2 places.
They could also, and I agree with that. That would actually make the most sense. And for the time being, they could also just have them play 4 straight home games or whatever, to where it's the same for all the away teams, and then they just have to stay in the US for whatever to play multiple.
They could just do like a round robin divisional game at the beginning of the season, and then they all come back to the US and play their away games, sort of, and like just kind of do it that way. That would be really odd, and like I feel like that'd be really frustrating for the players and the coaches and stuff, but
it's in like 2025. There's that jet that they're creating that's supposed to be able to make the trip from like New York to London in 4 hours. Like once they, yeah, it's I forget who it's from. I want to say it's from Boeing, but once they complete that and like all 32 teams get their version of that thing, like, yeah,
they're remaking the Concorde.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, so I think that'll be something here. What's the third game you kind of want to talk about, Casen? What's got the most interesting?
Oh yeah, I think definitely probably one of the games of the day was Dolphins Bills. That was definitely a powerhouse matchup, a huge divisional thing. I know, you know, we talked about that on our football preview.
We have dogged the Bills pretty badly. They look fine.
Yeah, I look. I would like to at least acknowledge this. My take was not wrong. All I said was that they need to fix what issues they had, and they did. That's all I said.
I think Josh Allen personally heard you and multiple people say our window's closed, and he took that personally. he's
honestly, I kind of thought the same. Like, I was really skeptical about the Bills coming into the year, and then they lost after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. But yeah, I actually have this written down as the first game too. Like, the Bills have completely like turned it around. I think Josh Allen has 1 pick the last 3 games, so like they look really good.
The one TikToker is just so good. I forget the name, but it's like Josh Allen, just no plan, no focus, just out here doing stuff. No plan, no focus. He's unchained athleticism. Just let him cook. I will say though, they've looked great in the regular season these last several years, and then things just completely fall apart. If they have another first round exit against Miami this year, it's going to be like, okay, so yeah, all those drubbings you put on weeks, 5 through 15, doesn't matter if you lose. So the Bills fans in my circle, of which I know a couple, have expressed a similar sentiment. And the second they have anything resembling a bad game, all that's going to creep back in. Those narratives anyway, But I did want to give them praise. I still think the Dolphins are for real. And I think, I don't know. I heard someone allude to, do you throw out the stats that happen against the Broncos? I'm like, when you score 70 points, no, you don't. But at the same time, the Bills are just also very good. And I could easily see this going the other way whenever the Bills have to go to Miami in like week, whatever it is.
To be fair, I'm not saying, throw out the stats, like the yards and the touchdowns count and all that stuff, but like, yeah, like the Broncos stopped playing at halftime, and like you can kind of just
horrendous.
like you can't just say, oh, so the Bills are 70 points better than the Broncos. Like, no, it's just that game got ridiculous and they just stopped playing. I mean, I think the Dolphins were owed one karmically, because I think we brought it up last week.
Yeah, we did. We talked about the McDaniels stuff.
Well, the Dolphins lost by 50 to the Ravens a couple years ago. And so just karmically, they were owed an opposite side of that. But yeah, I think definitely that matchup was very important for the divisional standings.
For sure.
Especially because with the way that things are looking. I mean, we'll talk about that later, but those two are gonna be gunning for each other.
Yes. Are we good to move into college just to keep it going and spend more time on baseball?
I have one NFL question for you guys because it pertains to your division.
Absolutely.
Are the Bengals bad? Because it appears that Joe Burrow is like seriously injured and like he can't even like move in the pocket. And they've kind of looked horrible even in the game that they won.
Well, it's interesting.
And I also have written down 2 out of their 3 next games are against Buffalo and Seattle as well, and they still play the Chiefs later on in the year as well.
So we talked about that before, and I think that we came to the determination, I think other people did too, that if their schedule wasn't like back-to-back divisional games first off the slate, they would have probably just let him continue to heal. But they needed a win against the Browns and the Ravens, and so he came and played, and it didn't work out.
I think we're gonna find out. Ask me after like week 8, James, if maybe not week 8, week 6 or 7, if the Bengals are bad, because if they have the Cardinals this week, okay,
right,
in Arizona. If they look bad against them, it's like, okay, well then and if they get drilled by, wow, they have Seattle, they have Seattle,
they're gonna win next week probably,
and the Bills in a row. That's crazy.
Like they could easily start 2-5.
Yeah, they could.
Well, it's just like at that point, maybe just shut Joe Burrow down and then tank for Marvin Harrison Jr. and let T. Higgins walk.
I actually saw that exact theory posted the other day.
It's
really interesting because Jamar Chase, like before the season, like openly said he didn't think Joe Burrow should play the first couple weeks, which I thought was really interesting. And I even saw like last week he like doubled down and was like, yeah, I kind of don't think Joe should have been playing this time, but kind of is what it is. But
I think I don't know for sure, but I think I saw some other comments made that maybe people were disagreeing with the choices being made about that. It's just, I mean, it's going to be a massive problem. I mean, the Bengals have terrible luck when it comes to QB health. I mean, we saw that with Carson Palmer. I mean, it's just, they have a quarterback and he's always injured.
Well, what's interesting is that what was the narrative when Joe Burrow first came into the NFL, right? They need to address the line or Joe Burrow's career could go the way of like Andrew Luck. I think that is still very much on the table. Like that has not gone away. Like that's still very much where we're at right now. My thinking is about Joe Burrow being injured or not. It is to the point now where if you are actively hurting the team, I asked Casen when we first talked about this like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, why are you playing right now? Because in hindsight, you might have had, like, if you had a fully healthy quarterback in there with that roster, they might have been able to get maybe a dub against, say, the Ravens, a 3-point game. You know what I mean? So it's all about differences in philosophy, but I think we should not forget that fact that they could still very much ruin Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Yeah. So I don't know, James. That's the answer to my question. It's to answer your question. Yeah. I don't know, and I don't think any of the three of us really know yet. But at some point, you are what your record is, right?
Yeah.
And we're like at the line in the NFL season of, okay, we know where you're good or you're bad or you're decent or whatever. So yeah, we want to talk some college, just a little bit about the week that was in college football.
Sure.
Now, Casen, was there anything that really jumped out to you? Oh, he's switching the hats. Yeah, Casen is switching hat bits based on the topic, which I love him for. Love it.
Yeah, so we can just jump off the bat, I guess, and say our Bowling Green Falcons got a win against Georgia Tech.
Yep, wanted to mention that. Right, like I think all three of us were surprised by that.
Stunned.
Stunned.
Many people were stunned by that. I mean, especially after the showing at Homecoming, that I don't think any of us were really expecting much of a performance on Saturday, and all of a sudden, they just came out and really dominated that game from start to finish.
James, I want to circle back to something you sent me in a Snapchat of something you said. I want you to kind of expand on it. This is kind of what this staff, this regime there for the Falcons, what they do. Like, they're good for one kind of random win like this a year where they're like 30-point underdogs. And not only do they win, but like they kind of dominate the back end of the game. Like, middle of the third quarter on is just Bowling Green all the way on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, every single year they've had just 1 to 2 unexplainable, like 3+ touchdown. No one thinks they have even 1% chance wins. Like, they did it Leffler's first year when they like dominated Toledo and won by 2 touchdowns. Minnesota, the Marshall game last year, Toledo last year, I think they were close to 3 touchdowns, if not bigger underdogs.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, they've done that, but now I think, and now that they're, and even next week, like, I thought, Miami, I think Miami, Ohio, and Toledo are actually like really good teams. I think one of those 3 will win the MAC. But after that, like which is the last 6 games of the season, they're all playing teams that, you should be as good or better than. So that's going to be the real test. Like, okay, you've won a shocking game again, but now the last 6 games of the season, you actually have a chance to do something. Now that the first half, at least record wise, like, they could have easily went 0-5 or 1-4. So, can they actually win these games now against the conference? Because that's really what matters. Like, you can't get blown out by Buffalo and Akron, and like that, it kind of just totally destroys that. So yeah, they just need to find some consistency as they get into the MAC part of the schedule that really matters now.
Yep, and you said it all, man. I mean, I really think that the 3 of us, James literally always used to end the sports corner by saying "Go Falcons," which is great.
Oh yeah.
We always said "Go Falcons" too. So the sentiment continues. I personally, just speaking as a fan, as an alumnus, fellow alumnus like yourselves, I wish we could consistently get the guys up for the games like that. Whatever the routine is, just the being able to do that week to week has just been an issue from the look of things. And hopefully it's a get right situation where we start to trend more that way,
And as we speak, we are 10-point dogs in Oxford.
Okay.
Miami's like really good.
They're a very good
like
team.
The first time in like 30 years. Like, they might be the best team in the MAC. Like, it'll be whoever wins that Miami Ohio game, which will be obviously a rivalry. That'll be a huge game this year.
I bet you guys that if we hadn't beat Georgia Tech last week, we would be like 20-point underdogs in that game.
Probably.
We're at like 10 points seems close to me, but we got that bump because
especially on the road too. Like, if that was at home, then they're basically saying it's like a touchdown game.
Yeah. So right over 2 possession, I can definitely see that. I wanted to ask you guys just an open-ended question, because I asked this to a couple of people in the last few days around my circle. Who is the best college football in the United States right now? What, point blank? And
best team?
Yeah, who is the best team in college football this year? It's hard. You can't really answer that question, can you?
Honestly.
I mean,
that's my point.
I was genuinely annoyed that Georgia was still number 1 after they barely survived a mediocre Auburn team.
They're Auburn,
but at the same time, like, does Michigan deserve to be number 1? No. Does Texas? Probably not. Like, I mean,
there's glaring issues with every single. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say the number 1 team should probably be the better out of Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. I mean, just in my opinion, whoever comes out of those 3 would be the most tested. But
I had someone say
it's a wild season.
I had someone say to me, Washington And I backed that up with, that's the only team that for the most part has destroyed everybody on their schedule, blown them away. Michael Penix Jr. is playing phenomenal. He's playing like a Heisman contender, period.
Yeah, they're one of 5 teams I've written down. Like, they're very good. They have like multiple high round wide receivers too.
Who are the other 4, James?
USC, Michigan, Georgia, and Oregon.
Gotcha. I will say that I had another person tell me Oklahoma, because maybe they've kind of finally figured out the defense.
State is in there, obviously.
Ohio State as well. I kind of said this weekend will tell us a lot because we got the Red River rivalry going on. So I think if one team emerges out of that game looking significantly better than the other, Texas and Oklahoma, that is, I think we can probably start to circle that one as probably definitely a contender and might be one of the best. Definitely is one of the best teams in the country. The one other thing I wanted to add based on what we've talked about, Casen, is the best conference in football this year seems to be the Pac-12. Ironically, like, I don't think it's really even a debate. Like, from top to bottom, the Pac-12 has looked the best. They're all balling up for the last year in its existence.
I think.
They definitely are very deep. I mean, you have USC and Oregon, and then all the way down to Oregon State, Washington State, Utah. It's definitely one of their typical, like, they're gonna eat themselves alive types of seasons in the Pac-12.
Absolutely.
Which again is just such a shame. I mean, it's such a fun conference, and the fact that it's gone after this year is just such a shame. So
it is.
They're going all out for the final year.
They really are. Like, that's how it feels. I did want to bring up to you guys, if you saw any of Notre Dame Duke. That was the game.
That was like my big game I had circled on this one.
Yeah. Great game. I was kind of following it, and then I got back and I got to actually see the final situation, what happened, essentially, the final rushing touchdown, the winning touchdown. I got to say, the sequence, that 10-second sequence that Duke went through, where not only did they lose the game, but they lost their starting quarterback seemingly for a year, that was like the most disastrous 10 seconds.
It was devastating.
I hate to chuckle, but like, I even said that was about as devastating you can't script it thing to happen to any football team. Like, we might as well cancel the rest of the season. Like, that's how it felt.
Yeah, that was crazy.
You lose this game, you're like kind of like one of your premier games on the schedule to kind of arrive, and you lose the guy who helped you get to this point. I mean, it was like devastating. I just didn't know if you guys had saw that or felt the same way.
Yeah. I saw that in real time as well, and I was like, "Oh no,
no!" And it was one of those things.
Thankfully, he's not too badly injured, and I think it's a high ankle sprain, so he could be back by the end of the month.
Yeah.
But definitely
Riley Leonard.
Yep. That's definitely that's tough.
That being said, I still think Notre Dame's very good, and I think their one loss to Ohio State really isn't gonna hurt them too much, especially if Ohio State does their normal, where they're almost undefeated.
Destroyed
by Michigan.
if they go down and and look really good against USC in a couple weeks, then they definitely can still be in the conversation.
Yeah, I know we talked about it last week. Go ahead.
Mike Elko support, like the head coach of Duke was the Bowling Green defensive coordinator when in 2013 when Dave Clawson left, and I've been like a huge stan for him ever since then. He went to Wake Forest, and then he went to, I think he was the highest paid coordinator in the country with Texas A&M, and then he quickly got hired by Duke, ironically, and then he went to
I believe
Notre Dame, excuse me, and then he went to Duke.
I believe he interviewed it with Bowling Green the last time around, right?
I think he did, yeah. But he's incredible, honestly. I had to go back and make sure Duke was as bad as I thought they were, and their average season is 3-9, and then he comes in, they win 9 games last year, and they really should have won against Notre Dame. Sam Hartman goes his thing's defense. He holds Sam Hartman to, I think I had down 15 for 30. Duke missed a 38-yard field goal and a 25-yard field goal, and then had 4th and 16 on the last drive to win. And obviously Sam Hartman rushes and they get it. And then, yeah, their quarterback gets, it was just a disaster. But like, they were so close to being like, oh my gosh, Duke's undefeated. They're incredible. Like, how is this happening? I mean, they're still good and everything. They should still get credit for that. But yeah, they were just so close to pulling that off.
I was not necessarily rooting for either team, but I was kind of in this. I was rooting for the scenario, which this could still happen. Just want to put it on record, where college game day goes for football to Duke, to UNC and Duke, which could still happen. Hey,
that is crazy.
That could still happen. But I just was thinking to myself, man, we are living in this reality, man, where these basketball schools are like,
and Kansas is like decent now too.
Syracuse is having a good season.
Yeah.
They're not undefeated anymore after last week, obviously. But yeah, it's just cool to see. And you're right. You guys are so right about Mike Elko. And he's the kind of defensive mind, but also coaching mind that, like, he had a turnaround at Duke, which is just like completely alarming. Like, crazy. go from like 9 wins in your first. I mean, that's like one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like what the all-time greats do.
Like, I'm to the point now where, like, Kellan, you would know how I feel about Dave Clawson. Like, is he better than Dave Clawson? Because, like, I kind of think he might be at this point. Because
I mean,
it was always like the defense with Dave Clawson's teams. Like, when we won it the first time, it was just, oh my gosh, the defense isn't allowing any points, and then they completely own Jordan Lynch. And then he's been like the best defensive coordinator basically since, or at least top 5, like, objectively. And now Duke, who literally never wins, is like amazing.
That's the very interesting thing is that,
yeah.
So Elko was at, I don't know. I mean, Wake kind of hasn't really been the same since Elko left.
And they beat Wake Forest in Elko's first year last year too, and Wake was good.
And which is also a hilarious connection that Notre Dame has Sam Hartman, which is hilarious that way. But so I mean, maybe the secret sauce for Clawson was Elko the whole time.
At least part of it.
A huge part of it. I mean, Clawson's a great coach in his own right.
Absolutely.
But like Elko's like on par with him, it seems.
Elko, like, I distinctly remember a stat line, which I think you told me about, James, which literally 10 years ago, shout out the 2013 MAC champs, the destroyers of Jordan Lynch. That was nuts. I distinctly remember the stat line of top defenses in the country by like yardage allowed. It was like 4 SEC teams and then just Bowling Green.
Yeah, like we were in 2013, we were like unanimously in every category, top 10 to top 5 and everything.
Yeah, and
like it was to the point where like Matt Johnson was like a game manager basically. And then once they got Dino Babers, it was like, oh my God, Matt Johnson's like incredible too.
Yeah, just shut down defense. You didn't want to play this thing. And it was just one of those things where I'll never forget leading up to that. The build up and the experience of the 2013 MAC championship, James and Casen, James can absolutely attest to this, is one of the greatest periods of time of my life, like as a sports fan or like as a professional. Just the outcome. I just distinctly remember all of the like intricate MAC experts were picking BG in that game. Like it was mostly Jordan Lynch and them, but it was mostly people were picking them, but people who actually cover the MAC were all like, don't be surprised if this is a really close BG win. Yeah. People were doing that because Jordan Lynch literally has not faced a defense like this. Maybe arguably in his time as the starting quarterback. And obviously we saw what the destruction that BG laid down on them. One of the greatest. I just wanted to, gush about that for a second. Hopefully we can get to that again. But so I hope Duke goes up from here. I did want to. Were any other games that jumped out at you, Casen? Or James?
That Duke Notre Dame one was really the big one for me, and obviously the BG one. Those are the 2 big ones.
We can switch gears to the upcoming week if you want, just to kind of mention a few.
I'll just mention that the Texas-Kansas on Saturday. I mean, not obviously that big of a game. It's just more the fact of like, that's a game that Texas normally loses. I mean, they've lost to Kansas before recently. It was definitely, a number 24 Kansas team. They're not bad. They're pretty good. It's definitely, one of those trap games, earlier in the season that we've seen Texas kind of fall into a false sense of security for. and they just beat them down 40-10 or 14 or 40-14.
Yeah.
And so they definitely came out and played very well, like they should have. So maybe just a sign of, the quality of the team this year.
I really want to, if they come out and look like significantly better than Oklahoma, Texas is back. Don't even kid yourself. They're 100% all the way back, at least for this year. Contenders absolutely will be mentioning for the playoff. No question about it.
I totally agree. One other hilarious game that I just thought of was Lane Kiffin versus Brian Kelly. It was like 60-55 and Ole Miss won. I also saw a stat that was just like Brian Kelly left to LSU because he thought it was an easier place to win, and like his record over that time and like Notre Dame's record is it's kind of like maybe he shouldn't have went to the SEC.
That was actually Ole Miss over LSU. That was actually one of my things that was in contention for upset of the week. It's an honorable mention. It's not my upset of the week. But yeah.
I mean, looking forward to this weekend. Yeah, I mean, Texas and Oklahoma is a huge game. I don't know I just don't know what to believe with Oklahoma. I mean, they have killed some bad teams, but they've also kind of shown a few weak points. I mean, like they only beat Cincinnati 20-6, but they absolutely annihilated Tulsa, Arkansas State, and Iowa State even. So it's just I don't know what to expect with that. So
there is a huge game for their, needless to say, but like I think their coach is the old Clemson defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, I think. And he was like coming on into this year, kind of on the hot seat, just with how
they were bad last year. Yeah, they were bad.
Yeah, and so I mean, if they win this game, that's like huge for him.
Yeah, there is a game that I did want to point out. It's a game between one of the top teams and an unranked team, but I'm going somewhere with it. The Maryland-Ohio State game. I'm not, by no means do I think Ohio State is on upset alert, because I just think that there's a huge difference between Maryland and Ohio State. But Maryland is 5-0, and Tua's brother, Talia, is playing incredible. If that's like close at halftime before Ohio State ultimately pulls away, don't be surprised. I'm just throwing it out.
Oh, there. Yeah. I mean, Ohio State's 20-point favorites in that. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, they usually are always relatively competitive, at least for the first part of the game against Maryland. So yeah, that's definitely a very close situation.
Just for reference, their last, like, they had really no competition to start the year, but their last three games, they beat Virginia 42-14, Michigan State 31-9, and Indiana 44-17. I mean, like, when has Maryland
is legit?
Yeah, like, when has Maryland, since they joined the Big Ten, ever like in a position where they're destroying like teams like that?
Yeah,
very rare. So I'm just saying,
not losing to BG like they did in 2015.
Exactly. Add Georgia Tech to the latest of in the BG upset graveyard, right? But anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Not exactly beyond that. Oh, I guess I will shout out Syracuse coming off the loss against Clemson. They play number 14 North Carolina. Yes, Casen.
One other game, Kentucky heading to Athens to play Georgia.
Indeed.
They're both 5-0. I mean, Kentucky is up and down. You don't really talk about Kentucky football that much, but they just beat Florida. And yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of this Kentucky team just from the fact of that they have Liam Cohen back, who was the only reason Will Levis even got drafted in the first place, because he looked good. Then Liam Cohen went to the Rams and Will Levis looked like trash last year. And so he came back to Kentucky and he is their offense humming again. So I mean, I'm sure Georgia will probably win by a couple touchdowns, but it might be interesting into the third quarter.
Solid. And Georgia's look shaky this year. So I see every reason to definitely pay attention.
Well, that's also true. I mean, that's also true. I mean, after what we saw in Auburn, who knows? I mean,
I think it's
possible.
very, very possible that Georgia drops a game late in their schedule prior to the SEC championship game. I really, really.
They almost lost to South Carolina too. I think
Mhm.
they've gotten down 2 scores in both of their SEC games.
Yeah,
So, and I think Kentucky's probably better than both of those teams they play.
Mhm.
for sure. Is it time for of the weeks? Casen?
I'd say so. Yeah.
So Casen usually, so James, to explain to you and the listeners how this works, I know you listen. So we just kind of pick out, there are certain of the weeks that we try to do every year or every week, but there's always just random ones. And typically Casen's are just like funny. So I usually let him just kind of rattle off. He usually has more than me too. So let's hear it.
I will start with my you need to calm down of the week, and that goes to the National Football League. with I mean, if you happen to watch the Chiefs Jets game Sunday night, that's a lot. It's a lot. You need to dial it back there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Taylor Swift thing last week, but we got to bring it up again.
It was funny. It was funny once, but like, I mean, and I got it because they didn't know she was going to be there last week, and then so they had to do this, I guess, for the primetime game. But stop it. If she goes to any more games, do not do anything else.
They are going to do the exact opposite, Casen.
They will.
Yes.
I want to hear James talk about this because in the past, James has been a very big fan of Taylor Swift.
I mean, yeah, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I mean, I agree though. I like too much of anything is annoying to anyone. So yeah, like if you're watching, which I did see most of that game, like, I mean, they showed her like 30 plus times. Like, I'm not even kidding. Cause I put the over under at like 10 and it was like, they blew past that, like within the first 10 minutes of the game with the
I put that at 19 and a half.
There was a streamer.
I mean, it was way over.
And that even got shattered.
There was a streamer that actually had a counter of Aaron Rodgers sightings, like when they show him and Taylor Swift sightings, and Taylor Swift obviously blew past Aaron Rodgers, but I want to say it was like 25. It was like in the upper 20 range. So like 30 times, like you're right.
The one thing I did like that is they did I think it was ESPN that did and it was how I figured out this game was happening, is they played Taylor Swift's Welcome to New York song as the ESPN promo for the Chiefs playing the Jets. And like I really like that song. So I was like, oh, like this is great. Like I like that. But yeah, I don't need to see her 45 times a game during. Luckily, I guess the Chiefs do play on primetime, but as long as they don't play like on Sunday or Monday night, we really won't see it. But I'm sure they still do a handful of times.
Social media.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even saying so much like the cutaways that are in the box, because it was definitely interesting just because of who else was in the box. I mean, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman,
Brittany Mahomes.
All that stuff. Brittany Mahomes. but like the Carson Daly bit at the beginning, all of the jokes and the references was just way too much. I mean, just a lot.
It was
so
NBC was like, we are going all the way with this.
Well, I think I told some of the people this too, is that I think that they were fully prepared for that game to be terrible, and so they were like, we need something to talk about, and then it ended up actually being kind of decent.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to know. I would love to know the metrics of just how much money just her appearances has made the NFL in the last 2 weeks. I mean, we know some of the numbers, but in like raw specs of like from viewers to merch to just everything, every revenue stream the NFL has, I'd be very interested to know if it hasn't been just like many, many millions more collectively. But yeah, did you mean to use the Taylor Swift lyric as in that of the week, Casen?
Yes, that was
good. I was going to say
that was intentional.
You need to calm down of the week. I love that.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and say what my upset of the week was. My upset of the week was the Titans over the Bengals, mainly because it was like just so shocking. It was like James, for context, I try to pick the most surprising football result of the weekend, college or NFL. What one had the most, like when I walk into my office on Monday, what game are we talking about first? Because like what happened there, you know what I mean, or what are the implications? And for me this week, it was an NFL. It was Titans Bengals. So Yeah,
I
Casen,
got
I
a
don't know if you-
couple. I'll
Yeah,
do
go ahead.
one because I think he deserves a shout out. It's not going to be what you think it is. Retirement of the week. Obviously, Miguel Cabrera retired this
Yeah.
week, but one that kind of went under the radar in the same game, Terry Francona, who I think is easily one of the very best managers of all time. The manager of the Red Sox team that came back from 3-0 and like broke their Cubs like curse to win the World Series, won another World Series with the Red Sox, and then they, what I would say, panic fired him after the whole crazy last game of the season, where like Evan Longoria, probably one of the best last days of the regular season ever, and the Red Sox collapse. They also had that like chicken scandal in their clubhouse, where like they were eating chicken and drinking beer, which got made into like a really negative thing. But Terry Francona is like one of the handful of best managers of our lifetime, I think. And his retirement kind of went under the radar, especially with playing Miguel Cabrera's last game. But I think that guy's great. And
I didn't realize
Cleveland to the
Francona.
World Series, probably should have won that one. He's a great manager.
I completely I didn't realize Francona was retiring, because when they had put the thing out like thanking him, I'm like, well, I know they didn't fire this man, so I'm like, he must be just hanging him up.
He missed like half the season he like stepped away for health stuff.
That's right.
And I think it for like the last month and a half, everybody kind of knew that he was going to be done.
Life has a way of telling you it's time.
Yeah.
And he like really downplayed like everything. Like he basically didn't even announce it. They just kind of read between the lines and like did all, like if it was up to him, I don't even think they would have really done much of a send off for him. But like the last game, like Cleveland like sold out their stadium and it was a big deal.
That's cool
in Cleveland. So that was cool to see.
Shout out Tito, man. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out Miggy too. We will get to that. Seriously. I wanted to, that was the other reason why I wanted you on this week. You have another of the week, Casen?
Yeah, I have an of the decade.
Okay.
I have a boat of the decade, and this goes to the yacht that the 2016 New York Giants partied on during the divisional round of the playoffs. And
Roger Lewis from BG was on
that. Famously Roger Lewis was, I think he's in that picture even. Insane thing. I do have one more college of the week. I just wanted to pull them up here. I don't have an absolute dog of the week this week. Nothing really stood out. But I do have like shout out them, like a group of 5 squad of the week. That's not BG, because they're always an of the week. Fresno State, I think, might be the best group of 5 team this year. I started thinking, I was thinking, it was Tulane there, but Fresno State they're always really good, right? I mean, they produced NFL talent, obviously. It's par for course for them, but weirdly, I'm always in a position where I'm able to watch their game at night, because they're always like a late night game and all that. I've weirdly seen them play like 3 times now, and I'm like, these Bulldogs over there at Fresno, California, they play well. So anyway, it was like random. Program. Yep, shout out them. I've always loved their logo too. So
I have a worst decision of the year.
Of the week.
And it's Sean Payton deciding to be the head coach of the Broncos. I know they won this past week, but just I followed that situation, and it seems to me that he just really hates Russell Wilson, like hates this guy's guts was what I'm reading. And they're horrible. He came in and criticized the last coach and said it's the worst coaching job he's ever seen. And then they lost 70-20 to a team, and like, okay, they kind of had a miraculous comeback to beat the Bears, but that guy was like maybe one of the biggest commodities I've seen in coaching in my lifetime this offseason, and that seemingly everyone wanted him. He could handpick kind of where he could go, and he decided to go to this Broncos team, which seems like I think they're going to be a bottom 5 team in the NFL this year. Like
they might be worse than last year.
They have the worst defense statistically in the league. Even if you take out the 70-point game, they've still been horrible. And I don't know what he was doing picking to go to that team. worst decision of the year.
I mean, I'm looking at the Broncos schedule. I don't think they'll win again. I'm dead serious. They might beat the Vikings on Sunday Night Football, like down the road, but everything else
is that in Denver or in Minneapolis?
It is in Denver. So that's literally that's the one game. They get the Chiefs twice, obviously. They get the Jets, the Packers, Texans. They might win. That's at Texas though, and CJ Stroud has looked great. So
Herbert will score 50 points on them both times. Like they'll lose to them.
They also have the Patriots at home and the Raiders twice. The Raiders already beat them. So anyway, that's.
I think they could beat the Raiders. Yeah, they could beat the Raiders.
They could beat the Raiders. So we'll see. But anyway, totally agree, James. I guess if I have an of the week, it's that I feel bad for you, dude, of the week, and it's just Justin Fields. He's apparently just devastatedly crushed after that game. Like, how can you not be? But that's one more bonus of the week for me, and now I'm done with mine. Casen. If you have another one.
I mean that was all I had.
Perfect.
I also had something about. I was also going to address the Fresno State, but that was all I had.
It's I clocked us at 5:30. We're entering kind of our second hour, so we've got basically the rest of the time to talk about baseball. We're not obviously last time you were on, James, we did a whole preview. We're not going to go to each series. It won't take as long, but wanted to kind of give you the floor. First off, I wanted to ask you, you were at Miggy's last game, right?
Yes, I was.
How was it?
Yeah, it was great. I think Detroit fans really showed out for him. I mean, really the last couple of weeks, people were just kind of going down there to see him for the last time. And then ultimately the last game worked out pretty well. He got a walk his last at bat. And then it was kind of weird because then they grounded into a double play. I thought they would like take him out after he got on base, and they didn't. And then they grounded into a double play. So I was like, they didn't really give him like a send off. He just kind of had to jog off the field after they hit into a double play. But then he came out, which was like probably the best part about it, is he played first base, which he hadn't played like all season. So like no one was thinking he was going to like come out and play first base. And so he ran out there, and then almost like you see in hockey, how they like let the guy go out there, like the rookie, they like let him skate out there by himself. Like the Tiger, no one went out there, which he didn't know. So he was like kind of like uncomfortable with it at first, because he was like, come on guys, like come out here. But then it was great. And he like took off his, like kind of had a recognition moment and everything. And then like the very first pitch, they hit it to him at first base, which was like, wow, like that just seemed like the baseball gods were like, just hit it right to him. He kind of made a spectacle of it. And then he has like 3 kids, and then his 3 kids and the manager like walked onto the field like right after that. And that was like his last, that was his walking off the field, like moment there.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was great. Obviously he's, really declined right when he signed that contract. That with all these guys, it's just like, okay, the end of this is probably going to be bad, but he was kind of like the highlight of a bunch of just like kind of bad Tigers teams. So fortunately from that standpoint, he didn't really like drag down a good team or anything. And yeah, I think it just kind of ushers in now a new era where the team seeming like did better this year than I think most people thought. They were almost like a 500 team. So with a bunch of young guys, so hopefully that can a good end to Miggy's career, and just kind of a new era now with all of those guys now gone. So
I even felt a bit nostalgic myself, because obviously I lived with you last time the Tigers were really, really good, and Miguel was a huge part of that. And I thought the same thing you do. I'm like, oh wow, like so they're all off the roster now. Like they're all those Tigers. So I was really happy you were able to go, and like it registered when I saw on your Instagram story where you were. I was like, oh, it's Miguel's last game. I was looking at your images, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, absolutely. Like if I was in Pittsburgh, I would go to like Kutch's last game, which speaking of which, it sounds like he's running it back with the Pirates next year, which is great. But anyway, I'm glad you got to go, man. And shout out Miguel. It's cool to know that like both he and Tito will be first ballot Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? Like having gone to Cooperstown, I can't wait to see the plaques of what they look like. Like 100% surefire going to be in there. So yeah, wanted to just do a quick score check here. It is the top of the ninth. Wild cards are going on right now. Texas leads 7-1. Looking pretty good. Looking like that's going to be
So
that
we'll
would be
move on then, right?
yeah,
Because
they
that's
would
best out of 3.
best of 3. So that would be it for
Mhm.
that one. You get and
Yep.
Toronto and Minnesota just started.
Yep.
I was gonna make a joke prior to the show. I will say it's funny how they give us the most aesthetically bad and like not pleasing ballparks first in the day.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna put Rangers Rays first, so everyone can see Tropicana, and not very and the not sold out amazingly Tropicana Field for a
Not even
postseason
close.
game. Like
Yeah.
weird stuff. I mean, that's just the one thing I was gonna mention. I also always thought the Rogers Center wasn't exactly the best looking either, but I know they're playing that in Minnesota. So anyway, James, I kind of let you lead this discussion because, and I'll just kind of say, James actually sent Casen and I his predictions for the season that he made on our show, all those months ago, beginning of the summer, back in spring. And I'd like you to just kind of discuss them and rattle them off,
Yeah.
and we can even comment on them and go for
Yeah,
it.
I mean, looking back on it, I feel pretty good. I mean, obviously with both East divisions, the 2 disappointments were the New York teams. The 2 highest paid teams in the sport both bombed out and didn't make the playoffs. The Mets really were kind of a disgrace this year, I thought.
The Mets were funny, I thought. Honestly,
Yeah,
that
it
was
like hilarious.
it was hilarious how bad they.
You can't blame
Yeah.
yourself for them just completely laying an
Right.
egg the entire season.
Right. The
Because they
Yankees-
definitely both should have made the playoffs.
Right. I mean, the Yankees didn't do, I mean, they were just in a great division. I mean, every team, I think, in their division had a winning record, and Judge missed like a third of the year.
The East
The
is
Central
always
divisions.
the East is always disgusting, though. I mean, just not that. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, moving on to the Central. The AL Central, I did tab as the worst division in baseball, which I feel good that ended up being true. Terrible division. I had Cleveland winning it. I think they did have the lead at the All-Star break, and they just kind of had a bad second half in the season. I'll give Minnesota credit. I really didn't think anything of that team, and they really did play well the second half of the season, not just in terms of the AL Central, but they had a really good second half of the season. The NL Central, I remember, and I went back and looked at this, I said, like, I had really no clue who was going to win this division, and I defaulted to the Cardinals just with their history, having Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. And wow, that had to be one of their worst seasons of our lifetimes, right? I mean, that was incredibly disappointing. They started off horrendously, and they just never rebounded whatsoever.
I wanted to point that out and just say, James, I'd have to double check the stat, but just for reference, that is the first time in our lifetime that the Pittsburgh Pirates have finished above the Cardinals at any point in division. I'm pretty sure the last time it happened would have been 1991 or 2. And it was funny because I'm like, we're both still not going to make the postseason, but we're at least 4th place if they're dead last. As an NL Central fan, it was great to see the Cardinals suck this year. Just going to throw it out there. We have to deal with them all the time, and it was like inexplicable how bad they were.
I thought it was actually like one of the more fun divisions, honestly, this year. Because even the Pirates, like, I know it was only for like a month or so, but like they had like a month plus where like they were doing well and leading the division. You had the Cubs, which I think no one really thought they would be seriously in the mix, and they like collapsed. Like they should have made the playoffs. And then you had the Reds, which no one really had on the radar, and they had Ellie De La Cruz, and they had a pretty fun season. And then the Brewers kind of just squeaked it out at the end. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was a pretty fun division overall.
Yeah, as much as I don't like them as a fan, the Reds were a genuinely fun team this year. And I look forward to the kind of a new rebirth of our rivalry of you're going to have O'Neill Cruz on one side and Ellie De La Cruz on the other side for Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. And that's going to be a lot of fun for a lot of years. Hopefully a lot of years. Go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
And then the West, San Diego was probably the next biggest disappointing team, I thought. And they almost rescued it at the end. I think they only missed the last wild card by like 2 games or something like that. But I had them making it in the wild card, the Dodgers winning the division, which they did. Houston winning the division, which that division as well. The AL West was a pretty good one too. I had Houston getting it done. Seattle, I had making the playoffs, which they missed out on the final series. Texas had a really good year. They kind of gave away the division lead, but they were kind of a playoff team for most of the year. They comfortably got into the wild card. And then really probably the thing I was most surprised about or most happy about is the two sleeper teams I had really panned out. I should have just went with them. The Diamondbacks, who I don't think anyone had on their radar going into the season. Corbin Carroll, who was kind of their star, their rookie. He should be the rookie of the year. And really, through the first like half of the season, he was kind of like the MVP candidate until Acuna and like Betts and Freeman kind of took over that. And then Baltimore really took the next step. And actually, I rewatched this. Kellan, you mentioned them. Like, could Baltimore take the next step? And clearly they did, having the top seed in the AL. And they seem like, I mean, with how they're set up, it's just all like young guys that were high draft picks and moves that they've made to where now those guys should be there for years to come. So they might be honestly probably like the story of the season. Baltimore just with how they played and not just being like a fun little story that snuck into the playoffs. Like they had the best record in the AL this year.
101 wins is not a thing that I think any of us thought was possible. I thought I was kind of reviewing also the last time you were on. It kind of amazed me that they kind of blew away that division because just in our lifetime, no one really usually runs away with it, and they didn't either. You know, you got all three teams at the top,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I will say this, you know, shout out my dad. His favorite AL team most of his life was the Baltimore Orioles. So as good as they are for the while, it's gonna be really cool to see that. Yeah. So I'm very happy that worked out. But I didn't think they'd be 100-game winners.
Right.
That was awesome. So all in all, I mean, Casen, any thoughts? I don't want to dominate conversation.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that definitely they got the benefit of the Yankees and the Red Sox sort of just bottoming out. And then so it definitely cool to see the Orioles be good again for first time in a while.
I gotta love.
So
I love.
We'll see how they fare.
I love that the Yankees and Red Sox are both not in the postseason. I mean, just this is fantastic.
Well, I mean, Yankees, Red Sox, Royals, Cardinals, like all of these big, huge brands are just not present this year.
I will say
one amazing thing. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, one amazing thing that I noticed that I had is like a storyline, but I didn't like. I wonder if you guys knew this. Like, so I knew Minnesota was horrible in the first round. Like they notoriously lose in the first round. I did not know that they had their record. They had lost 18 straight playoff games. That's like incredible, especially in baseball where, you know, it's not like the NBA where like, you know, if you get the 8th seed, you're kind of just expected to get swept. Like pretty much all of these playoff postseason games are relatively toss-ups. Like it's not like crazy that one team or the other can win. And they lost 18 straight playoff games. So shout out to them for winning. They won yesterday. Like that was like huge for them. They won a playoff game and now they have like a great chance to advance.
There's like Twins fans our age who are like, man, you have no idea how long I've waited to see this.
Seriously.
Yeah, it seems like very difficult to do just with like sort of how the like I guess you could say game of chance it is with like the play with like just the pitching rotations because like it is so random and like any given day you could just win a game. And for that to go with 18 games without winning in the postseason is seems insane and impossible.
I think that dated back to 2003 or 4, something like that. I didn't realize.
I think it was 04. I think is what it was.
I didn't realize it was 18 games though. That's
crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, that was my. So I guess it's kind of getting into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like the first round, I had Toronto winning that, so they're playing right now. They're gonna have to win both of those now to advance. You know, we mentioned Texas and Tampa Bay. I picked Texas in that series. They're really almost like a Yankees type example of how I wanted them to I want the Yankees to they should just get the best player every year. And Texas has just kind of spent their way out of a rebuild. I mean, getting Seager and Simeon and I mean, unfortunately, they've had a ton of injuries pitching wise. Scherzer and I think DeGrom as
they
well.
don't get. I think their lack of depth there is what's going to do them in down the road.
Yeah, right. But their offense is kind of what's carried them. Who do you guys? I don't know. What is your guys' thought of the AL? I guess in general, if we just want to keep it to there.
Yeah. So, like one look at the AL, my brain immediately goes to okay, so it's definitely going to be Houston. But I like that's literally when I saw the bracket, I was like, okay, so Houston's going to the World Series again. That we'll see. We'll see. I want to see how legit this Orioles team is. James, you have talked about them to me multiple times, and I just think that it is. I want to see an Astros versus Orioles, and I really think that could be a true AL America. Like America gets behind the O's against the hated Astros. Outside of Houston, I can see something like that. I'm not really a believer in either wild card team. Going into it, I kind of thought Twins weren't impressive. I kind of leaned your way, Toronto and the Rangers. But I really do think this is going to be O's and Astros. I would be very surprised if it's not that in the 5-game when we get to the divisional round. In case, and you can talk about.
No, I definitely agree with that. I mean,
nice hat switch, by the way. Saw that.
I'll definitely, be rooting for the O's to get past the Astros. It's just, I mean, in that situation, you lean with the guys who've been there before, and with the young Orioles team, it could be the moment could be too big for them.
I just hope they get the opportunity at the full 7-game, like something crazy doesn't happen and the Orioles go in. It's like, okay, the experienced team who's been there many times, know how to play postseason baseball against the young guys. That is going to be the narrative of that series if it happens, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. That's what I have. I have Baltimore and Houston in the ALCS, and I hope, as you've mentioned, that's what happens because I think that'd be the most intriguing matchup. I mean, really, Houston is. Like you guys have mentioned, they're the one team that they have all the guys that really they've had, Alvarez, Altuve, Bregman, Verlander now back. Kyle Tucker is one of their guys that was still there the whole time, but he was kind of like the young guy emerging. Now he's like an MVP type candidate for them. So they really, you look at and say they had the most experience and should be the team that gets it done. But it'll be interesting because I think they have similar flaws. I think the big thing will be with Houston will be their pitching. I mean, it's the additions that they've made with Verlander, I think is huge if he can clutch up in the postseason like he has for them. But their bullpen is very, very shaky. And the Astros, it's almost like the opposite. I feel really good about their bullpen. I think their lineup in general is very deep and balanced. It is a lot of young guys, though, so will the moment be too big for them? We'll see. But really the thing for them I have is like the X factor, if that series gets to it, for the Orioles, I think is Grayson Rodriguez, who's a starting pitcher for them. I think he was the #1 overall prospect in baseball heading into the year.
Yeah.
And they called him up, I think before the All-Star break, and he kind of struggled, and they sent him down. And then they brought him up again in the second half, and he was kind of like lights out. His last 6 games, his average start was 6 innings and less than 2 runs. So, and that's like their #2 or 3 starter. So if he can pitch well and continue kind of what he did in the second half, then they might just have the full roster to do it because their bullpen is very, very good. And even if their offense kind of underperforms a little bit, they are pretty deep through their order. So ultimately, I do have Baltimore pulling it out, getting to the World Series. So that's my prediction in the AL.
That's awesome. Okay. All right. I like we can do the same thing for the National League because there's a team in baseball this year where they made news when they lost this year. because it didn't happen that often. I mean, truly, I've never seen a year where I think this has the potential to be a season where we are seeing one of the greatest teams in the history of baseball and one of the worst in the same season. I'm speaking of the Athletics, Oakland A's, which obviously we're not going to get into, but the Braves. I have gone into this postseason thinking that it's theirs to lose, and I would be maybe not shocked, but I'd be a bit stunned if they're not at least in the World Series. That's how good Atlanta's looked this year. And now that I live in the South, it's like a lot of folks talk about because of how popular the Braves are with good reason. James, or Casen, you can comment on that. Anyone who wants to take it.
Go for it, Casen.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely they've looked the sturdiest. It's hard to doubt them. So I think I think until proven otherwise, we're going to be looking at Astros, Braves, which will be a very annoying annoying matchup between the fan bases.
I gotta say, I do have to say though, I think either team that comes out, because I think it's going to be Philadelphia who takes that series. The Phillies hit a fifth gear in October. They are so fun to watch as much as it pains me as a Pittsburgher to say, they are like, it just seems like they are the ones constantly blowing up my social media of, did you see what Bryce did? Did you see what these guys, like even last night, the flipping the helmet off after, on the way around the bases to run faster. It's like, dude, Philadelphia fans, they continuously have lost.
Hate the Braves. Those fan bases hate each other. Yeah, I have the Phillies also winning that series, and I hope just from an entertainment standpoint, because I think that could go 5 games.
Yeah.
And that could be a really fun, like that would probably be the most fun, like World Series type matchup. I think those two.
I agree. And it's always interesting in MLB because I feel like it happens in MLB just because of the way that the postseason works. You get a lot of divisional rounds early on, like divisional matchups. Not as many in the AL this year, barring the Rays had pulled it out, but they didn't. You whenever you are going up against your division in the divisional round, it's always fascinating because who knows, like it's kind of like the final, it's like the boss battle, so to speak. Like who is actually better this year in a series of 5, having to play each other, 10 times during the regular season. It's always fascinating, and who knows you better than your division. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, the Phillies, and I thought Toronto could be the one team that could channel that, and that Philadelphia last year didn't play well at all, and then they got to the playoffs and played their best baseball of the season and got to the World Series because of it. Like Toronto's a team if they get super hot, they could do that. But yeah, Philly, maybe they do it again because no one expected that from them last year, but they have all of the talent in the world. Adding Trey Turner, who had a horrendous start and then really turned it on. So yeah, they would be the one team I think that could uproot what kind of people expect to happen. I do have Atlanta and the Dodgers in the NLCS, which I think would be another great series. The Dodgers, I think they're a little bit too flawed in that they're going to be starting an opener, I think, as far as their rotation. They have Kershaw, who's done well, but he's old and historically has been really bad in the playoffs.
Hilarious in the playoffs.
That's his one thing. He does bad in the playoffs. And then after that, they really don't have anyone. It's all rookies. And then, like I said, I think they're going to start their 8th inning guy is, their 7th or 8th inning guy and just kind of patch it together. So their pitching is really thin. The only thing, though, is they have Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, who have both maybe had their best seasons of their career, both at the same time. And they've been just incredible. So they're 2 guys that if they just, remain hot and carry the team, they're good enough to take that team to the World Series.
Let me
go ahead, Casen, go ahead.
I just want to ask you something, James. Do you think this is the point in where the Dodgers finally start fading? Because they won 100 games, but every one of their best players is like over 30, and like you think it's like now we're getting into October and it's like, especially the pitching is going to go away. It's just like as the season goes on,
Yeah, I think it could be like a transitional period for them. I mean, I don't know how long those two guys like Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman would play. Like certainly not like in the long term. The thing with them is their like system in terms of like their minor league and the amount of guys that they produce. They have like each year they're near the top in the like farm system rankings and everything. So their organization's incredible. Like even if you look at their roster now, they have guys sprinkled throughout it, both pitching wise and in the lineup that have like done well and that are young guys on the come up.
Mhm.
And then the other thing with them is they'll just like, they're going to, I think, spend their way out of whatever deficiencies they have. They're a team that I think would be a real threat to get Ohtani this year. I do think he's going to move on. So like the Dodgers might be the most, like maybe the team that makes the most sense. I think they'll definitely push for that. So they could potentially, but I just think their organization, it's different than the Yankees in that the Yankees don't value their minor league system at all. And
they don't
like really don't bring up any guys that like Judge is a really rare instance of a guy that they retained and held on to. They just haven't valued that. So if the Dodgers continue with their kind of how they value their system, I think that just gives them a big edge. But we'll see, because they're definitely going to have some roster turnover because all their guys are vets.
You want to know an interesting
JD
stat?
Martinez had a big year for them. He's going to be gone after this year unless they re-sign him. So yeah, we'll see.
You want to know an interesting stat, guys? The Dodgers are the oldest team in MLB by average age of the roster. 30.2, just barely beating out the Miami Marlins, believe it or not. They have an older roster.
Yeah. I thought that it was just sort of an interesting apex moment because like we'll see how they can fare after winning 100 games and how durable they are into October. And then also just after the season and beyond this year and into next year, as they'll have to try and find people to replace.
My question is,
you let Trey Turner go. I thought that was an un-Dodgers move. Like, why not just re-sign him? Like, he's a top 10 player in baseball. So, yeah, I do think Kellan, what the point you made, I totally agree with. Like, to me, this whole season has been like, are the Braves going to win the World Series and put themselves in the discussion for one of the best teams? Because they've just been incredible. I think the one thing that really makes me buy into them is like Ronald Acuna, who I think should win the MVP, who wasn't playing when they won the World Series 2 years ago. He was hurt. And I really get behind the idea that he just has like this single-minded focus of like, now basically it's his team and he didn't get to be a part of any of that last time. And now he's kind of driving that team. And what a unbelievably incredible season he had with 70 plus steals and 40. I think he had the record at like 40 home runs and 50 steals, I think. And then he had finished with 70 plus steals. So everything about their season has been incredible. I mean, they move on from Freddie Freeman and get Matt Olson, who has, I think, 54 home runs. And they're just a team that like throughout the season, I'll like pull up my MLB app like 3 or 4 times a night just to look at the games. And even if they'd fall behind, every time they'd fall behind like 5 or 6-0, it's like, okay, now they're down 5-2. Now it's okay, they're up 8-5. It's just they're amazing. It's crazy. Their offense is good. Their pitching's like, they're a complete team and they've put it all together. So
all right, it's inning 6. Let's turn it on and score 5.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're down 5 in the 3rd inning. Who cares? Like, we're still gonna win by like 6 runs. So I do have Atlanta winning the World Series over Baltimore.
Wow.
In 6 games, that's my prediction. But we'll see. Maybe it's it's going to be a crazy postseason. If like Philadelphia upsets Atlanta, then all bets are off, and it's just going to be crazy.
I will say that was actually one thing I was going to say. If Philadelphia upsets the Braves, they're my favorite to win it all. I'm like, you guys just went through those guys. And I'm like, they're say they have a red hot, even if they do it in 5 games, you can't tell me that I'd be like, okay, the Phillies, like, it's theirs to lose. They just did that to Atlanta. Like, I kind of hope something like that happens just because it would be ridiculous. But I also was just sitting here, Philadelphia and Baltimore in the World Series, just those 2 fan bases.
Oh man.
Like those 2 cities. I was sitting here thinking to myself, man, as insufferable as Philly fans are, when they even sniff a championship, it is so entertaining on social media, everywhere. And then it's even funnier when they lose it, like they've done like the last 5 attempts.
Right.
So I mean,
it would be so funny for them to go through the Braves and then get swept by the Orioles.
I really do think something, at least one crazy thing will happen, because if you remember last season too, like not only was it crazy that Philadelphia made it, but like San Diego upset the Dodgers, which was like kind of stunning. Like I just feel like there's going to be at least 1 or 2 like, oh my goodness, like what just happened type of moments. And especially in the postseason baseball, where just every pitch you're like, it's so important, and someone's going to, with 2 outs and 2 strikes, hit a home run, or some team's going to be down to their final out and they're going to do something crazy and then win the series. So it's going to be fun.
It's funny, James, because you and I talk about this just as friends, and Casen, we've talked about this on the show too, but I'm so not used to baseball postseason because it's only happened 3 times in my life as a Pirates fan. 2013, we win the wild card. It's been 10 years since then. Quite a moment, by the way. It's incredible. And then we get destroyed in the next 2 ones. Haven't been in the postseason since. I literally don't know what it's like to care about baseball up to like the NLCS. Yet I'll say. Whereas James, up until say college, you had more experience in the Stanley Cup playoffs as a fan than anything else, and really NBA too, with the Pistons as well. And Casen, I guess now he's a Knights fan, so it's Stanley Cup as well. But it's like it's going to be a great postseason when I am. We don't have dogs in the fight. None of us have a dog in the fight, and I still always just look forward to October, ever since especially they expanded the wild card, because I just think it's incredible. I love this. I love having 7 to 8 to 10 things at night I can watch, all week long. What's up, Casen?
You mentioned the sorry.
I know.
Well, I was just gonna say that the Twins are up 2-0 at the top of the 5th.
They could move on.
So
there you go.
Kellan, you mentioned the wild card. That was actually one thing I wanted to ask you guys, because I'm kind of split on it. One, I like the extra team in the playoffs. I like that, having the 7 teams, or the extra wild card that they added whenever they did that. But do you guys like that there's no 1-game wild card? Because I actually really, really like that. Like that was, and I know obviously Pittsburgh had the incredible thing with Johnny Cueto. You mentioned they lost one as well, but I just thought that game was amazing, and that it was just a single game, and it just had so much drama. So I'm kind of bummed out that that's not here.
It's fascinating that you ask that, James, because Matt, who's a friend of the show, kind of brought something like that up in a chat that he has with Casen and I.
He did.
And shout out Matt. I will say, because Matt was saying that he loved it as well, James. He loved the 1 game as well. And I immediately clapped back and I said, I hated it and I'm glad it's gone. But I'm biased. You know what I mean? I'm completely biased. If I look at it without this hypothetical hat on as a fan, it did add a lot of drama, and watching those 2 teams battle it out in 1 game to decide was always pretty interesting and fun. It's just, I'm glad to know now that if the next time the Pirates make it to the postseason, it's likely going to be in the wild card. And if we lose game 1, it's just nice to know that we have another shot.
Right.
If we were fans of bigger market squads that are always in it, we wouldn't even care about this. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, we usually win the division.
Right.
So I lean more towards, I'm happy it's the way it is now, because to me, we get more games, and that's just, to me, they all have amazing energy, and I just like more games in the postseason. Also, this week is just amazing. You got 4 games on during the day, every day, starting at like
this
3
is like
to
the
midnight.
best 2 days. Like I always like the opening round the best, just because they have the games from like 1 o'clock till the end of the day.
It feels like
it's like March Madness.
Exactly. I was just about to make that comparison. I feel in October like we are the opening weekend of March Madness. You're at work and you can just follow what's going on. Casen, I've talked over you. Go ahead, dude. You can answer the question.
I was going to say that brings up a really good point in that, I don't know. I think it'd be really, really interesting to have a March Madness type of tournament with baseball. Like you know what? Screw the All-Star game. Let's just have
single elimination.
That'd be really fun.
Side.
Oh my god, that would be a nightmare. Actually,
no, everybody put everybody in there.
All 30 teams. Put them in the bracket. Let's see how far we make it. You know, James always said something, which is actually one of the most brilliant analyst takes I've heard of any friends, TV, anyone. Genius take that you continuously said, James. Your momentum game to game in baseball is only as good as your next starting pitcher. That was a phrase that a hill you would die on, because it's just totally
Jim Leland quote. He would always say
he
that.
said that.
It's true.
Okay.
Like you can think, oh yeah, like we're hot, we're doing great, and then your pitcher gives up 6 runs in the first inning and you're done.
Yeah. And
momentum's out the door.
That for that reason there is a 5 pitching, there is a pitching rotation, is the reason why baseball should never come down to one game, because you can just be cooked if your pitcher has a bad day. That being said, it would be fascinating to see a tournament like that, because for me, I feel it would come down to really the bullpens in a tournament like that. If you did like single elimination, like who I have no, like literally it could be anyone. You could throw out a dartboard. It's like, oh, these guys are just hot. Bam, they win the World Series. That would be nuts.
I mean, it's sort of the same thing as what the NBA is trying to do with their midseason tournament.
Yeah.
Because it'll give teams that aren't built to compete in the playoffs an opportunity to at least strive for something.
I agree. It would be fun. I guess I'll go ahead and say my World Series prediction as well. I think it is. I lean Astros, Braves, and I think Braves are going to take it. And I will openly be rooting for Atlanta to win if it does end up that, which I believe would be a repeat of the last time the Braves won it.
Yeah, 2021. I believe it was Astros, Braves.
Braves
won.
And Casen, you want to go ahead and predict?
Yeah, I think I said, you know what? I'll go for storyline. Let's go Orioles Braves. It does feel like, even though they're the 1 seed, the Orioles are kind of the underdog because they have to get past the Astros. So yeah. I think it'll be sort of a passing of the torch moment, I think, if they can get through the Astros.
Hey man,
I think that
the Orioles might be about to dominate the AL for the next 10 years.
Well, I'll be sick of them next year, but for now, I at least want to.
I don't think I'd even be sick of them next year unless they won the World Series, and I'd be like, well, now Baltimore fans won't shut up. But at least it's the Orioles.
One kind of funny thing with the Orioles that Kellan, I know you'll relate to this, is their owner literally said that like their fans better enjoy this core now, because like once it's time for their they can't afford, they're not going to pay like all like Adlai Rutschman, like Gunnar Henderson. It like became big news. I think it was like middle of the season. Like if you just Google like, Orioles owner like contract situation, he just flat out said like enjoy this team now, because like we're not going to pay all these guys what they're worth.
I can totally see Pirates ownership saying like the same thing if we ever got really, really good. Yeah, I got to tell you guys about this. I have to tell you. I'll send you photos afterwards. Someone used an AI art generator to put together real photos of what a hypothetical World Series parade would look like for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the images are actually pretty good. And it's also like utterly incomprehensible to me. It is so weird to even see it, because I'm like, we've never even sniffed this. I just can't. And if we ever won the World Series, I'd be like, okay, this is the only time it's ever happening in my life. I am celebrating to high heaven because of that exact reason, James. We're not a rich team. So I will send you guys the images later. And listeners, if you want to see them, I saved them because they're actually pretty good.
I need to do that. I need to do this for the Lions now to get to get my hopes up even more.
A Lions Super Bowl parade. What would that look like? Yeah, every fan base. I'd give yourself
Browns too. Yeah.
Browns as well. Yep. Casen, what's up?
I'm just keeping track of this game. This is getting nuts. Oh boy.
Yeah, they could come back right here.
They have 2 on base with Bichetti on. Oh, okay.
I'm definitely keeping this on as we wrap the show up. But there it is. There's the predictions. That's all we had on our agenda today. James, I don't know if there's anything you want to plug right now. We typically let the guests do that. You still got orange cards going.
Yeah, you can follow my Instagram. I do a lot of stuff with like trading cards. But other than that, big fan of the show. I watch pretty routinely, so I appreciate you guys having me on, and it was a good time.
Thanks, James.
And hopefully these playoffs live up to the bill. I think they will. I think it'll be a good playoffs again.
We'll enjoy it if nothing else.
Yep.
I always say this, listeners, let us know kind of like what you think. Those of you that do every week, you will. We know. The one thing I will mention is Casen and I have been reviewing Ahsoka, and of course Loki starts this week. We will get back to the reviews next week. We'll finish up Ahsoka and we'll talk about the beginning of Loki. Wanted to just shout out the writer strike is over. Everything's coming back. SNL's coming back in October, just in time for like the end of the year slate. Late Night's back. I saw John Oliver's back too. So just kind of cool to see things coming together and people getting their due. And I just wanted to say we acknowledge that we had a full sports slate today. Casen, you want to add anything?
No, yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about Ahsoka next time. But yep,
we're hitting the point, James, where we have now too much content. We were just like, all right, putting together this, we did the top athletes of all time and all that towards the end of August, and it's like, okay, by the time we hit October, it's going to be just like insane. Like we're going to have to cut down these lineups to it. But thank you out there, everyone, so much for listening. Thank you, James, so much for joining us. Enjoy the postseason, you guys. Seriously.
Yeah.
Hopefully
our teams will be in it one time again.
Yes.
Who knows when? Maybe next year.
Hopefully in the near future. Until then, if you're back like the Orioles after a long absence, enjoy it. Seriously, have a good time with it. Until next time, this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And this is James.
And we will see you at the next stop.